we are going to discuss the Arizona Cardinals and the Cleveland Browns game. This was a completely one-sided affair with the Arizona Cardinals absolutely obliterating Cleveland at home. Arizona beat the Browns by the score of 37-14, a three-possession win, which is very impressive against a Browns team that had a very solid performance against the Chargers last week, even though that it was in a losing fashion. But Kyler Murray was sensational once again. He had about 230 yards passing, had 4 touchdowns. Offensively, this team is just humming. Defensively, they were getting after Baker all day. So, Kevin, I'm going to pose a question to you. Just when you see the Cardinals and the way that they're playing, is it without a doubt that they are the best team in the NFL at this current moment in time?
To me, I don't really think there is much of a debate for it. I mean, obviously, they beat teams in which are their competitors. They beat the Rams, and obviously, they have gone out there and they have beat some tough opponents. And I don't really see it as a competition. I don't necessarily see this as something that is kind of not a definitive decision because the Arizona Cardinals are undefeated. They're doing what they need to do with their MVP caliber quarterback. Obviously, they just got better this past week. They traded for Zach Ertz, who didn't play this week, who tested positive for COVID after his Thursday night game for the Eagles. And I mean, their defense is doing what they need to do as well. I mean, obviously, you have Chandler Jones on one side of the ball, obviously, J.J. Watt, Buda Baker. I mean, we know what's on this team, but they find a way to get it done every single week. And outside of the second quarter where the Browns scored their 14 points, it was a shutout. The defense legitimately locked down, and Cleveland could not score. Granted, they were missing their two workhorses. Nick Chubb was a late scratch in terms of like Saturday evening, if not Friday evening. I forget which day it was. And then Kareem Hunt exits this game, and he gets carted off with an injury as well. Not that the running back situation would have made anything better because they were blown out early on, but when your two dominant players on the ground are out, that does make a very big difference in how you scheme for your offense. But overall, I just think Arizona is the best team in the league. The record shows it. How they've been playing shows it. Their confidence. I mean, Kyler Murray is sensational. 20 of 30. Not a lot of yards in the air in terms of major statistics, but 229, no interceptions, 4 touchdowns, a passer rating of freaking 129. He was sacked twice, but everybody just assumes Kyler Murray, he's a rushing quarterback. He's not really a guy that's going to get it done for you in the air. He doesn't know how to really sit in the pocket. He had 7 rushes today for 6 yards, so it's under a yard per carry. Again, I didn't watch this game in its full intense, to actually fully divulge my attention to it. But I don't really see anything that screams they have a weakness. I would say maybe their weakest point, and again, this is just my opinion, is their consistency to run the football from the running back position because it is running back by committee. They do have James Conner and Chase Edmonds and whatever have you, but I haven't really seen any of them have a breakout game to necessarily tell me like, oh wow, these running backs are going to go out there and they're gonna help Kyler Murray. I mean, when you run an RPO with a mobile quarterback for the most part, you just need someone that's going to actually make you believe that he's going to take the ball. And Chase and James are two backs that are convincing enough, but I would like to see a little bit more of an improvement on that side. But other than that, I mean, 37-14 speaks for itself. 6-0 speaks for itself. And obviously, they're at the top of most NFL analysts' power rankings. I know they're at the top of our power rankings. So Arizona did their thing. They beat Cleveland. I know Cleveland is pretty frustrated going in and losing, 3 in a row now, if I'm not mistaken?
Well, I know they lost their last two.
Well, obviously, their record is now 3-3. And, Baker is a warrior. I got to give a quick shout out to Baker, man. Kyle and I talked about it right before we started recording. Baker seems like one of those quarterbacks. I know Kyle and I had mentioned a few weeks back the last of the generation of warrior quarterbacks to kind of sit there, play through injury, and fight. It was probably like Ben Roethlisberger, but I mean Baker's right there with him. Baker's shoulder's been shot for the last almost month, if not the last 3 games. And he's going out there and he's laying his body out on the line. He's taking hits and he's getting up. He's going and getting work on the sideline in the tent. He's coming back out there doing what he needs to do. I mean, for God's sakes, there was a play, I believe, last week when they were playing the Chargers, and Baker's literally mic'd up, and he's like, yeah, my shoulder's just coming in and out. It's totally fine. It's whatever. And the next series, he comes out there and he dishes a block for his running back with one arm. And then he brings that defender to the ground with that arm. So, I mean, if anybody's going out there and giving it their all, not saying that Cleveland isn't as a whole as a team, but This can't all be put on Baker Mayfield's shoulders, man. He's been sacked 5 times today. He's playing with one arm. Thankfully, it's not his throwing arm, but I know that that does limit what you can do in terms of your mobility and your avoidance to get hit. But I think the Browns are going to find a way to bounce back. They're a resilient team. They just need to get healthy as well. But big kudos to Baker Mayfield, man. That guy's a beast.
Yeah, to focus on the Cardinals first, I mean, it's without a doubt that they are the best team in the NFL, and it's not just because that they're the last undefeated team. Granted, that is true, but there are some other factors into why I believe that. First of all, Kyler Murray is playing at an MVP level already this year. I mean, the guy had 4 touchdowns in this game today, completed 66% of his passes, and he was able to distribute the ball very well. He threw 5 completions to AJ Green, 5 completions to Christian Kirk, 3 to DeAndre Hopkins, 3 to Rondale Moore, and even Chase Edmonds out of the backfield had 3 catches. So when you see Kyler being able to distribute the ball very well amongst his targets, that's a nightmare defensively because all of these guys, specifically with AJ Green, Christian Kirk, and DeAndre Hopkins, those guys are huge playmakers for Arizona. And at this point, not really many teams, maybe outside of the 49ers, have really given Arizona trouble as far as their offensive output goes. But Kevin, this was a matchup that you and I had discussed last week where we legitimately thought that the Cleveland Browns had a very good chance to possibly end Arizona's undefeated season. And then Arizona puts 37 on the board and they win by 23 points. And not only that, I think the one thing that I was always concerned with Arizona going into this year was whether or not that their defense would be able to hold up. And the last month or so, they have played phenomenal. In the last 4 games, they have held their opponents to under 20 points or less in each matchup. So when you're getting that type of consistency from your defense on top of what your offense is being able to produce, it's without a doubt that this is the best team in the NFL. And I think there are some teams that are fairly close to them, meaning like the Packers, the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, the Bills. Like those teams are within like their range, but I do think that the Cardinals have a slight edge just simply because this team has not lost a game yet. Kyler's playing at an MVP level, and this defense is playing up to snuff. And that was one of the biggest concerns that I had going into the season, but they have proven me wrong at this point. So you got to give the Cardinals a lot of credit. To focus on Cleveland here, Cleveland I still think is a pretty solid team, but it's these injuries, man, and they are starting to mount up. Baker was already hurt with that torn labrum issue, and I imagine it did not get any better today. He had one play in particular where I believe he fumbled the ball, and one of the Cardinals defenders ended up kind of like driving Baker like on that shoulder that's been bothering him for the last couple of weeks. So I imagine he's going to be very sore going into tomorrow's film study. And on top of that, Nick Chubb was out going into this game with that late scratch, and then Kareem Hunt goes out with what could potentially be a very serious calf injury. I hope to God it's not an Achilles, because I mean, just last week we were saying that this is by far the best 1-2 running back combo, or arguably the best 1-2 running back combo. You could maybe make a case for Zeke and Tony Pollard at this point, but with both of those guys being hurt and potentially Kareem Hunt being out for an extended period of time, it definitely hurts Cleveland's chances moving forward. It's just the injuries. Injuries can derail an entire season. And unless Cleveland can find ways to kind of get these guys healthier sooner rather than later, even though despite the fact that I think that they're a good team, injuries could derail their season, at least for the next couple weeks. I don't know if it's going to derail their entire season, but at least probably for the next 3 to 4 weeks, it's going to be tough sledding for the Cleveland Browns. But the Cardinals are by far the best team in the NFL, and this performance once again proves that. And I mean, Kyler's probably at the top of the MVP discussion. I know there's a lot of other names that you could say, but he's definitely up at the top of the list in my opinion.